share some things with you. Let me tell you how I got where I am today with the message. When we were closing out at the point, I preached a message I used a text from Ecclesiastes, and it said, Solomon closed by saying, or the preacher closed by saying, get rid of sorrow and grief, enjoy your days, because life is short. And then I reflected on the questions that were put to us on the panel when we did the panel discussion the day before, at the point. And so as I contemplated the week after that, I'm saying, Father, there's too much sorrow in homes. There's too much weight in homes. There's too much animosity. There's just a lot of disjointedness. And then from some other experiences I've had during the same period of time, the wrangling that I see when people die in families, I saw that, and then the wrangling that comes at weddings, and I'm thinking, how do you know something is wrong with that? And so the Lord kind of prompted me to go down that line. So what I want to do, I want to begin by saying this to you. The laws of nature many times parallel spiritual laws. The laws of nature parallel spiritual laws, meaning that when God put nature into place, and we picked up on Mother Nature, it's Father Nature. It's not Mother Nature. The woman didn't produce nature. The God of heaven produced nature, and He is not Mother. Just thought I'd throw that in. So the laws of nature that the great God of heaven put into place when He created the world, and that science, through His provisions, have been able to expound on, many times parallels truth. So I made a statement to you 2 weeks ago. I said that the two places where there should never be ongoing disturbance is the home and the church. Because the home and the church are the two family units that God has instituted. And since everyone comes out of a home, we are all homemakers. And we are all made in a home. And so what is produced at birth, and I'll explain that term in a minute, really has to do with what went on in the home. Now, I'm going to ask a question that I've always answered just to take you down a journey. Where does a pre-born human being live? In the womb. What will determine, or just generally, what determines the health of the child when the child comes into this arena? So the health of the mother, generally speaking, and the health of that environment. Okay? The more negative infiltration into the womb spells what? Potential trouble for the child. Even if the child overcomes some of the intrusions in the womb, it does put what on the child? Stress. The child is stressed. So one of the goals of what we call prenatal care is what? Health. You go for your regular checkups, and sometimes in order to produce or to reduce the possibility of stress in the child or any injuries or any deformities, the lifestyle of the mommy and the family has to be adjusted. Because the whole goal now is to avoid what? Avoiding damage to the pre-born human being. Once we are born, we are in another womb. The womb is the home. You staying with me? I feel that. Or you all contemplating? See, the laws of nature, God says, in order for me to really get a pre-born human being to be ready to enter the world of other human beings, I have to put this child in an environment where it is protected and it is sheltered against the damages and the ills that could come and infiltrate that sac. So I'm going to put a pre-born human being on the inside of something, so that it could develop to be healthy when it comes out on the outside. So God continued with the same biological law of nature into real life. Now I have a born human being who is an infant, and I need to protect this infant so when birth comes, and when would birth come? Using the analogy, when it's time to leave home. See, so when birth takes place now, I want this child to be healthy when he or she is born the second time, not spiritually born. So, when you came into existence, I put you in a womb, so that you could, when you come into this realm, you would be healthy. And I want you to, I'm going to educate man enough so that moms would learn, dads would learn how, through medicine and science, what could be done to give us the greatest opportunity of producing that healthy child from the womb into this existence. Since I want to build a line of people that are for me, I have to now take the newborn child and leave him in another womb for a period of time, so that when he is born, he comes out what I want. Is this making sense to you? Let's run the video clip, please. See why I said it ain't Mother Nature, it's God. That's a marvelous 4-minute clip from birth to life. Now, obviously, I'm only lay the foundation this morning because of time, but you're going to help me lay the foundation. You begin to see the analogy? Okay. The whole human race bought into God's philosophy, but loosely. You see, why would I say that? Because we still hear this. This child, if this is what they're doing here, I can imagine what happens at home. We still judge, or we come to a measure of conclusion about what a home life may be like that we are totally unaware of, based on what? How we see the children. You see? We've all read these stats where they have children from 2-parent homes, percentage of this, children from single homes with moms this, and children from single homes, dads this, and children from homes where they were with an extended blood relative, being a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle, and we have all these stats. So human beings have come to learn that there is a direct correlation between they don't call it this, but this is in my series, between the second womb and life. Even though they don't use the same analogies that I'm using. So what they're saying is, when we look at the behavior of a child pushed into the world the second time, we have learned that a certain type of behavior has a type of a line tied to the second womb. And that has now become just the norm. That has become the norm. But what society doesn't realize, and this is why I struggle so much with people who don't believe that God exists, especially those who are in the field of science, because it's almost it's like, man, just how do you not see it? I guess that's what I would say. How do you not see it? So God's plan is, out of the first womb, you go into the second womb. Now in the Western culture, we say 18, whatever, your own man, your own woman. I'm just using what is culturally accepted. So we're going to say, this for the sake of the series, your first birth from the private womb into this existing world, you got into the second womb, which is the home, and at 18, you were spit out. We will just use it that way. Even though before 18, you leave the womb every day, and then you come back. Now, unlike the first womb, you can't go and come. In the second womb, our children go and come. Now, I've heard parents say with older children, I've heard with younger children. Your child comes home from school, let's say your child is 3 or under. And most children who come home from school 3 or under, how do they look? Let's just be real. I'm talking about your speedy pie now. Your eyes, your flesh and blood look. And how do they normally smell? They don't always smell the best. So what do? It's straighten the top. I think we all grew up with that. Both straighten the top. Why do we put them straight in the top? Technically, what are we trying to avoid? Yeah, we don't know what and this is how we go. And to all how human beings are, flesh how parents are. Parents are some interesting creatures. But of all the children in the school, your child is the only child that will pick up all the other children's germs and bring home. Because your child has no germs whatsoever. And so you need to go in the tub, because we don't want those other people's germs in our house. Depending on what your car is, and depending on how you dress, you kind of pretend, but you know you don't want that child run to hug you. You dress for work, and you see the child coming, and it's like, I gotta go back to work. Straighten it up. Then when we freshen them up, according to our standard, that we think they're clean, they're okay. You realize that every time your son, your daughter, my son, my daughter leaves the womb, they come back home with infection. Moral infection or infusion. Let me use that word at the beginning. What's infusion? Oh, permeable. If something is permeable, what does it mean? It things should flow through whatever the outer protection is. Every single time your children and my children leave the second womb, they come back infected. Now, they may not be infected to the degree to where it shows up. For example, they tell me all of us this morning got some type of bacteria in us. If it's under control, it's no big deal. So when we say we're healthy, what we're simply saying is whatever is in us is not to the point to where it can overthrow the balance of what is considered health. So every time your child comes out of the second womb and comes back home, they come back infected. Now, I know I have some theories that you don't like, but I still will express them. I still find it an oxymoron. And I don't necessarily have the best answer, but I will challenge what I'm going to say. I find it odd that the educational system today is that we take our children and we send them out of the womb into the care of institutions that have their own philosophical views. Teachers that have their own philosophical views. And we fully trust those institutions. We fully trust them. You don't question them. You all question me more than you always question them. And so our children go, and we are so proud that they're coming back infected. But we don't take the time to examine what are they being infected with. So what do we celebrate? We celebrate the fact that they came back infected, so because they can say their ABCs. That's what we're excited about. And then when they get a little older, we come back, they got infected because now they can run track and they got a medal. That's all we don't celebrate anything else. We celebrate the fact that, boy, they got all their BJCs or they got all their BDCSEs, but we are not examining philosophical infections that they're getting. We're not examining the moral infections that they're getting. We're not examining all these other things. So every time our children leave the second womb, they go out and then they come back. Now, just how we put that little PV child in the tub, we need to bathe our children every time they come home. Not physically. Philosophically, what are they thinking? What are they being taught? Let me ask you a question. How many of you, as parents, have gone through, I'm talking about, and I'm not talking about page by page scrutiny now, if only the table of content and maybe 1 or 2 lines of each chapter of your children's textbooks. How many of you have done that? Look at the hands. Me, not many. You don't even know what your child been infected with? You don't even know? I was reading a blog the other day, and I don't know, I know it exists here, but to what degree exercises, I don't know. So maybe you all who are teachers can help me. In the States, a parent has to agree for a child to take a particular class. If a parent doesn't agree, the child doesn't take the class. That's Henry's story. This particular lady was looking at the sex education portion of the book that her 4th grade child brought home. And she went through the book, and the particular chapter, it was various home setups, something along those lines. So the child was being taught that there is a traditional home, which is the mommy and the daddy. Then there is the home with a single parent. And then there is the home with 2 daddies. And then there's a home with 2 mommies. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but there was some comment made in the writing below the pictures that was derogatory toward the traditional home. So she went to the school and she signed some paper, and her child was excluded from the class because she did not want her child infected with that type of education. Is that it? Do we do that here? So what if you don't want your child in a particular class because of the content of the material? How does that work? There's what? Huh? What is your school policy?
That we have alternative classes.
So a parent could walk in and say, I don't want my child in this particular subject class?
Yes.
Beckles at LIS, yeah. But in the government system, what about other private schools? Anyone here at Sunland? Parent, Sunland parent? Is that, can you do that at Sunland? Well, what is the tabernacle?
You only have a choice, Pastor, with single subjects, some mandatory, some elective.
So if it's a non-mandatory course and I do not care for the content to infect my child, what recourse I have at your school?
You can take another choice. There's another choice. There's elective.
Not elective. And if it's a core subject, what happens?
You have to take it or take each other to school.
And Raquel, what is it at your school? Or you don't have that challenge? There's no choice. Okay.
School I used to go to was where if the parent was uncomfortable with the child taking that class, they would sit down in the library or in Windows level.
And they would get a 0, or I mean, what?
They would just,
Or you can substitute.
the parent would want this particular child inside the class. So they talked to the teacher, and instead of being in that class, whenever they had that class, they would let the child sit on the library.
Okay. So you realize what type of system we have in our country, right? Well, what's the system? We are going to infect your child, period. We, as parents, are so sophisticatedly dumb. I say we. That we fully give our children over to the system. We don't question the system. We don't challenge the system. We don't examine the books. We don't examine the philosophy. We just simply leave it. Now you're beginning to get a glimpse of why the second birth is producing a stupid society. Because the womb protectors have given over their authority and their right to an outsider. And when we send our children out every day from the second womb and we bring them back home, what we boast about is where they went. We boast about the fact that it's LIS, or we boast about the fact it's this school, or we boast about the fact it's the next school. But we never stop long enough to realize that God is going to hold me accountable for what I give birth to the second time. And so we pay no attention to the second birth, but we are stupid about the first birth. We spend all our money, and I'm not saying that's wrong, for the first birth. When we were on vacation, Akita was with us and we were taking pictures, and the lady said, yeah, well, the second one don't have that anywhere near that many photos. Right? And I said, yeah, you're right. But I mean, it wasn't, as grandparents, I think we'd be just as stupid with pictures. But you get the point I'm making. If we would put the significance on the second womb, as we put on the first womb, we'd have healthier children. Listen, it's no use. I take you to the Bible right now, because we'll be until tomorrow. I'm going to stop right there. I lay that foundation. Is this making sense to you? Now you're starting to see why we have the mess we have today? Because we, as parents, play crazy with the second womb. I'm not even talking about what is infiltrating our children inside the house. I don't remember the name of the games because I don't keep up with them, but I was watching the headline news, and one particular company, a well-known video game company, made a video game on how to kill students at school. Anyone heard that? Yeah. They made a video game. This is like the top-selling video company on how a child could watch the game, and it tells you how to kill students at school. And so somebody kind of rose up and spoke out against it. I didn't read all the reports. And I'm thinking, isn't that interesting? And at first, I was angry at the guy. And then I said, I angry at him. If I was him, I'd take advantage, with no morals now, I'd take advantage of the crazy culture too. Because parents don't check. You know what we do? We go, we buy the game. Some of you have games your children play, you never watch them. Never. And then some of you have adult children at home who've got games there, you should ban them from your boundary line. Because your children are being infected right in your house, and the only thing you can say about is dead hole. You're not concerned about moral values. You're not concerned about what is this video game showing my child. You're not concerned about that. You're not even interested in checking to see what in the world is being taught at school. You're not checking for that. You're not checking to see what's the moral story behind this program that my child is watching. You don't worry about that. You don't even check to see what's the moral story behind the program you watch it in front of those children. So we are in the second birth, our nation in trouble. In the second birth, the world is in trouble. In the second birth, Life Community Church in trouble. That's powerful.